All right, so what I want to do is I want to put things in slope-intercept form and then graph them, because if they're in standard form or other types of forms, sometimes it's not that easy to graph. I feel that it's easier to graph these things when they're in slope-intercept form. Okay, we don't need a table, we don't need anything, because it tells us exactly the direction that it needs to go. But to do that, everything needs to be solved for y. So we have to do that first. Okay, we have to solve for y first. So to do that, we're going to have to move some things around, right? So the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and move the 2x away from this side, because that's where our y is located. So I'm going to subtract 2x from the other side. Now, when I do that, my x's go away. I'm left with negative 3y. Okay? And that's going to be equal to, well, it's going to be negative 2x plus 6. And the reason why is because we cannot combine an x with another number if that other number doesn't have an x already with it. So we just bring it back down. We don't want to put the number in front of the x. We rather have it as negative 2x first, because that's going to set us up for slope-intercept form. So we want to then divide by negative 3. And so y is going to be equal to a positive 2 over 3, because negative over negative makes a positive. I want you to keep this as a fraction. Keep this slope as a fraction, because it's always going to help us whenever we're looking at trying to graph it. I think that if you keep the slope as a fraction, you can plot these points a lot easier. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to look at 6. 6 divided by negative 3 is a negative 2. So you do want to simplify that, because if you can put that into a decimal or to a whole number, it's going to be easier to graph. So I'm starting at negative 2 then, because if you recall, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, right? So to get it into this form, we had to solve for y. Now I do have it in the form, and that means that my starting point is going to be negative 2. Okay? And that means then that I'm going to go up 2 and then to the right 3. So I'm going to go up 2 and then 1, 2, 3 to the right. And then we're going to go up another 2 and then 3 to the right. Alright, that's pretty good. So I have these dots, right? And so now I can connect these dots with a line. Okay? So I can go ahead and do that. Let's just do it with a different type of color. Let's say green here. Now remember, this line is going to go all the way across your graph. So it doesn't just stop there at that point. Like, I can continue it down. And notice it's positive, and it should be positive because your slope is positive. Okay, so let's take another look at a different example similar to this, where we have to solve for y. Because if we can put it in slope-intercept form, we can graph it a lot easier. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at another one. Alright, so we have negative 4y minus 3x equals negative 12. This is a little different setup, but it's very similar to the same thing that we've done. If you look, y is located on the left, so what we got to do is we got to get rid of that x, okay? We don't want to move the y. We want to keep the y where it's at. The x just switched positions here. It's negative 3x, so we need to add 3x. So to add 3x to the other side, we need to do plus 3x. Okay? So when we do that, this creates our equation getting a little bit smaller and puts us where y will eventually be by itself. So let's go ahead and bring down negative 4y. Okay, this is going to be equal to a positive 3x minus 12. If you remember, we don't want to put 3 plus negative 12, which would be negative 9, right? We don't want that, because 12 does not have an x with it. So we just bring it down. Okay, we just bring everything back down. Now, last step, division. Now we can't just divide one thing, we have to divide everything by negative 4. Now it's time to pay attention to what we have left. We have 3x over negative 4. That does not simplify. If you put it in your calculator, it will not simplify to anything other than 3 over 4. So we're going to keep it as negative 3 over 4x. You say, well, why did you put the negative with the 3? Well, that's the one I'm talking about whenever I look at slope. I want to put the negative with the top number because that's going to tell me which direction I start with, whether or not I go up or I go down. All right, now I have a negative 12 and a negative 4. That makes a positive 3 because it's negative over negative. Now it's in slope-intercept form, so I'm going to go ahead and graph it. I have to start at 3, so I'm going to go to 3 and put a dot. Now, what I was talking about earlier is that this guy tells me which direction to start with. Do I go up or do I go down? Well, here I'm going to go down, right? And the reason why is because of this negative, okay? It's negative. If it's a negative over a negative, well, that makes a positive. This one, I only had one negative number here, and I put it with the top. I always want to go to the right. I don't want to go to the left. So I can go down and then to the right. So I'm going to go down 3 and then over to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I can do that several times. Okay? So down 3, 1, 2, 3, to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So I can do that and I can continue to do that. But now I have a line, right? And now I can go ahead and plot that line. Okay? And you want to go through all of your points. And notice, like I said, I don't have to stop at those points. I want this thing to continue going through these points into the end of the graph. And so there's our line. So graphing lines is actually really easy. You just have to make sure you have it in slope-intercept form. And then notice where you need to start. And notice how you need to count. Rise over run.